Welcome to MuggleCast, your weekly ride into the world of Harry Potter. I'm Andrew.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Micah.
Laura will be joining us in a few minutes. We are your Harry Potter friends talking about the books, the movies, and the upcoming television show. So make sure you follow us in your favorite podcast app, and that way you'll never miss an episode. And this week, we hope you studied up and you're feeling well rested because we're discussing Order of the Phoenix, Chapter 31, O.W.L.s. It's weird. It's hard to do that.
You did really well, actually, for being a little rusty.
Yeah, your little hem was actually better than your O.W.L.s.
O.W.L.s. There we go. And helping us with today's discussion is MuggleCast patron and Slug Club member, Stacy. Welcome to the show, Stacy.
Hi. Happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. Let's get your fandom ID.
My favorite book is Prisoner of Azkaban. Like Eric, I'm a big Marauder fan, so that kind of covers all the bases. My favorite movie is actually Goblet of Fire, which is maybe a little bit of a hot take. I'm a Ravenclaw. I went on to Wizarding World to remind myself what my Overmorning house is, and that's been taken down.
Taken down. They don't even want you to remember anymore.
So Google says the Ravenclaw equivalent is Horned Serpent, but for some reason I was thinking Thunderbird. My Patronus is a shrew, which we don't need to talk about any further because it's a shrew.
Yeah, I feel like you're in the boat that so many of us are, where you're just like, what? By the Patronus result. Yeah, mine's a stoat. And Hagrid feeds the children stoat sandwiches throughout the books. So,
as a fellow Ravenclaw, I also got Thunderbird, even though, like you're saying, Horned Serpent is the equivalent. So you're in good company, I'd like to think.
Okay, yeah. So I think it was Thunderbird. And then for the O.W.L.s chapter, when I was in middle and high school, my favorite classes were split between English and science classes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask that one because of today's chapter. And Stacy, we can't help but notice you have a very impressive wand collection behind you. How did you decide to collect so many wands, and how many do you have?
I have 77, 78 if you count the MuggleCast one, which is on the wall.
That should definitely count, I think.
But then she loses the magic of 77.
Yes, that just means now you have to go up to 777.
Well, there are more to get yet.
What was your first wand?
I bought a 6-pack Dumbledore's Army thing. So Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville, Luna, and Ginny.
And then you were hooked after that? Wow. It's
a slippery slope.
It really is.
And do you have a favorite of those 77? Because obviously the MuggleCast one is your favorite, but aside from the MuggleCast one.
Right.
Or maybe one that you were most surprised by the design.
I really like Tonks's. It's got a fun handle on it. Newt's is fun because it kind of looks like it's been chewed on.
Oh,
by a
interesting.
Beast.
Yeah, exactly.
By Pickett, maybe? Yeah. I could see Pickett gnawing at the wand. Well, cool. Welcome to the show. We appreciate your support on Patreon. And thanks for sort of including the MuggleCast wand in your collection total. I think it should count. We spoke to Harry Potter. He said it should count.
It's specially crafted. Of course it should count.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's on the same display. So
before we jump into chapter by chapter, we want to remind you of a couple of items related to the show. If you love MuggleCast and want to help us keep the show running as smoothly as Harry looking straight in Umbridge's face while casting a Patronus, we invite you to become a member of our community at patreon.com/MuggleCast. By financially supporting us for as little as $5 a month, you can get instant access to 2 bonus MuggleCast episodes every month, plus ad-free episodes, access to our recording studio by way of live streams, a personal video thank you message from one of the 4 MuggleCasters, and a lot more. This timing couldn't be perfect. Hi, Laura. I just wanted to kick it over to you and ask what's coming up in bonus MuggleCast this week.
Oh my gosh, this is such fortuitous timing. And hello, Stacy. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi,
Sorry I didn't get to say hey to you in the pre-show. So in today's bonus MuggleCast, we are going to be talking about some of the actors who declined roles in Potter and some of the reasons that they declined those roles. I think, we are all aware of at least some of the people on this list, but there were a couple of others that were surprises to me. So I'm looking forward to chatting about it.
Yeah, there is even news about one of them this week, I believe. I don't know if that's what inspired this discussion.
That is what inspired it, because I saw that news and I was like, what? The guy from Juno?
It's true.
That'll be available at patreon.com/MuggleCast. If you're looking for other ways to support us, you can visit MuggleCastMerch.com to buy official gear. And by the way, on that website, we have a link to limited time patron gifts from years past. You can also leave us a review in your favorite podcast app, and you can tell a fellow Muggle about the show. Finally, visit MuggleCast.com for quick access to all of this information, our contact form, and more. And now we have the whole gang here, so let's jump into chapter by chapter. And this week we're discussing Order of the Phoenix, chapter 31, O.W.L.s.
We last talked about this chapter on episode 468 of MuggleCast, which was called, and again, with the episode titles, Rubeus Hagrid's Punch-Out. And this was on June 9th of 2020.
3 turns should do it, I think. Good luck.
What the...
Episode 468.
What also cracks me up is Voldemort says in this vision, "We have hours ahead of us and nobody to hear you scream." Basically telling Harry, we're going to be here for a while. Wink, wink.
Coast is
Take
clear.
your time. Come on in. We'll be here.
Figure out how to get your ass to London with Hogwarts in a police state.
Mysterious thing time.
All right, well, it is test time, so break out your scantrons and number 2 pencils.
Oh my God.
That's a
Ooh.
triggering remark.
Thanks for the
Man.
time turner, Micah.
Is that
I'm
dating us a
already
bit?
breaking out in a cold sweat, Micah. I was not ready for this.
But first we actually have to study for the exams before we sit to take them. And I wanted to start the discussion talking about Ron's big win and Hagrid's big surprise, because Ron cannot stop talking about the Quidditch match. And it made me think if we'd ever had a friend who just couldn't stop talking about one of their biggest achievements. And Harry seems genuinely happy for Ron, whereas Hermione is just nose down in her books studying. And it's like this really fun dynamic that exists here. But Ron finally had his arguably one of his biggest moments in the series, and his 2 best friends were nowhere to be found.
It's the day of, or like the day shortly after, like in 40 years, he's still going to be talking about this. Then you can ask this question. Do you have any friends that just won't stop talking about their biggest accomplishment? For now, I'm inclined to let Ron have it. What makes me laugh, though, and I really did giggle while reading this, is the content, the actual text of what Ron is saying. He's like, "Oh, I thought he was going to go left, his left, my right. But then I went right at the last minute." And I was just like, oh, Quidditch actually doesn't work when you write about it. Like, it's not exciting to read about. Like, the actual moment of, like, I don't want to be like super ignorant of all of sports, but goalkeeping, which is extremely talented, is not necessarily the kind of thing that is exciting while written about. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you go left, you go right.
Well, that's why we went to the
instinct.
forest.
So to hear Ron talk about it, I'm like, who's listening to this and going, "Oh my God, I'm on the edge of my seat." You know, it's like, you did the good saves.
I feel like it's more impressive if you see it, right? Like if you go to a soccer match, like watching those goalies is very impressive. But yeah, if I were reading like a written description about what they were doing, probably not so much. But I'm also not hugely into sports, so...
But even in the Muggle world, I feel like when you hear athletes talking about a game or plays, they don't really get more detailed than what Eric was describing. And they have like post-game interviews, and you're hearing them repeat the same things over and over again. Or you hear them at the press interview, the coach, and it's like, yeah, we locked in, we really focused, we caught the ball. It's nothing original time to time. We got to do better next time. It's the same like 10 things every time.
It made me wonder what the least exciting to read about position on the Quidditch team is. And I'd say besides keeper, I mean, there are at least 3 hoops, which is exciting. But for a seeker, you know, the seeker's job is done when they get the golden snitch or don't get the golden snitch. And we've seen probably the Seeker's position be written about the most in the Harry Potter books, less so as the books have progressed. But chasers are at least exciting, right? And that's the commentary that we get when the announcer is talking about it. And beaters probably next most exciting to like actually read about from the perspective of the beater, which we never get.
Yeah. It is fun to play, though. Again, like to anyone who ever played Quidditch Champions, I personally enjoyed playing the beater role. But what I liked about that too is that you could switch back and forth between these different positions so you could experience all of them.
But to your point, Eric, a Seeker recapping their game would be like, I floated there and I floated there. I looked left and I looked right and I sneezed. And then I thought I saw something. It was just a fly.
It's more than just the commentary on the match, though. It's the fact that Ron has, I believe, won the Quidditch Cup for Gryffindor, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think this is his standout moment.
And he does deserve to talk about it because this was a unique, very special occasion.
Yeah.
And it's all the more appropriate that he is talking about it so passionately because Harry and Hermione weren't there to witness it. So they get to experience some of the excitement that actually happened on the field.
I went left. My left.
Yeah.
His right.
I mean, I think for Ron, who has never really had that moment, that it's been just him and it's not, oh yeah, you did this with Harry, or you were with Harry until you passed out and then Harry did the thing. I mean, I think he has the right to celebrate and feel proud of it.
Yeah, think about what he saw in the mirror of Erised. Like, this is that moment come to fruition.
This is one of his heart's desires.
Aww.
Yeah.
Well, one good thing that does come from this whole conversation or observance by Harry is that Ron reminds him quite a bit of somebody that he just saw in a memory not that long ago. And what I love about this moment in particular is that there's positivity around it because there's been so much negativity around Snape's worst memory and how James has come off to Harry. But the quote from the book was, the truth was that Ron had just reminded Harry forcibly of another Gryffindor Quidditch player who had once sat rumpling his hair under this very tree. So it's very cool to see the comparison between Ron and James.
It does seem like Harry's had a minute and a half now to actually process some of those emotions following his conversation with Remus and Sirius at Grimmauld Place. We don't see it happen. We don't really check in with Harry, but given that he's looking at Ron and kind of smiles under his breath about the comparison to his dad, we learn that we can infer that Harry is kind of no longer completely horrified by the idea, the specter of his father.
So Harry and Hermione break the truth to Ron that they didn't see him go left. They didn't see him go right.
Who's left? Who's right? I'm so confused.
We were watching Hagrid go left and right and deeper into the darker forest.
There you go.
To Ron's credit, he takes it very well. Like, he's, at first he starts to turn red, but as soon as he realizes exactly what happened, he probably realizes, one, he wouldn't have done any different. They didn't really have a choice if Hagrid's there. And the story is just too hard to believe that they would go and do this willingly. So he's quick to forgive, I think. And he's, by the end of their story, 5 minutes later, outraged on their behalf and for them and with them.
Giants definitely seem like something that would blow Ron's mind. And I think that's what happens in this moment. It just completely takes him off track from his whole Quidditch bragging session, and now he's focused in on the fact that Hagrid has brought yet another creature into the forest for them to have to contend with. And I thought he raised a really good point, and I'm interested to hear what you all have to say, because he asks the question, have we ever come off better for mixing with one of Hagrid's monster mates?
The only thing that I could think of is maybe Buckbeak, if we consider him a monster mate. Because, he turned out to be really critical at the end of Prisoner of Azkaban as far as getting Sirius to safety, and then he sticks around for at least 2 more books. And he also took a couple swipes at Malfoy, which I'm sure the trio appreciated.
Yeah, I think this is the nature of a position like this. Some of the beasts aren't going to be so friendly. Some of them are going to be. As the trio learned in Prisoner of Azkaban, there's also a right way to approach a hippogriff like Buckbeak. So, it is a good point that Ron raises, though. I agree with you, Micah. And this one might be one of the most dangerous beasts that they've been introduced to at all, because this guy is also located deep into the forest where they're not supposed to be going and where there's lots of other dangers afoot.
Other dangers that Hagrid is aware of, like he knows the centaurs tried to kill Firenze. He knows they're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's sort of brazenly walking in there thinking like, they're not going to do anything to me.
Because the kids are here.
Right.
I was trying to think of all the different monster mates that we've been introduced to throughout the course of the series that really made an impact. And so with Sorcerer's Stone, you had Fluffy. You could add Norberta to that list, but I think she was relatively harmless at that stage. In Chamber of Secrets, we got Aragog. In Prisoner of Azkaban, we have Buckbeak. And then what would we say for Goblet of Fire? The Blast-Ended Scroots?
Yeah.
I think so, because those were also a creation of Hagrid's, right?
Oh, yeah. He was black market something them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what is it? They're a cross between
Breeding.
Fire crabs and
manticores.
That was what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
I think that's right. Yeah. Oh, Hagrid.
Yeah.
Now we got giants.
So those wouldn't have been authorized by the Ministry or by Hogwarts. It's just Hagrid's own creation. It's almost like how in the Muggle world we don't really know the power of AI just yet, and people are like, "Oh, AI is going to take over. The robot's going to take over." This is kind of like what the Blast-Ended Scroots could have done, for all Hagrid knows. Maybe this is an extreme idea, but yeah, I'm just saying he doesn't know what he's putting in front of the kids.
Very true. And actually, Micah, I liked that you observed sort of the escalation in creatures that Hagrid is introducing over the books.
Bigger, bolder, more dangerous.
Right. Like baby dragon, big ass spider and its whole family, horse bird, blast-ended, like basically giant fire scorpions, and then a literal giant.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Hagrid.
Working you up to the big stuff.
So I wanted to ask, how do these O.W.L. exams reflect real world academic pressures? Because all of the students are utilizing different tactics to prepare for upcoming exams, and we can get the sense that anxiety is at an all-time high. And it feels like similar to when we came upon finals at the end of a term and we were cramming and we were studying and we knew the stakes were high, right? There were probably periods within our academic career where we knew that the exams that were coming up meant something, like whether they actually meant something in the larger context of our lives and our careers is another, conversation. But at that particular moment, we were told, you better do well on these exams. And that's exactly what these students are facing.
Yeah, totally. It feels in the moment, it feels like an insurmountable pressure because it kind of comes with the implication of if you don't do well on these exams, you might not get to go to the next grade, or you might not get to go to the college you want to go to, or you might not get a scholarship. Like, it is a lot of pressure to put on one test.
But then once you are over that hill, it's the most amazing feeling in the world. Even if you're not sure you did so well. At least for me, I was feeling very relieved after taking a test.
And then surprise, once you get out in the world and get established in whatever your career is, no one cares. No, literally.
You can have a calculator with you.
Yeah.
And you can have a dictionary next to you, and you get to Google all you want.
I mean, think about how often we got told that we're not going to have a calculator in our pockets back in the day. And now it's
Listen, the teachers didn't know about smartphones. Nobody knew.
No, in fairness, yeah, we didn't know where the future was going. And now schools are embracing ChatGPT because they know they can't stop the kids from using it. It's all so broken. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, speaking of broken, there was a brain study released now recently about AI users. But yeah.
Oh no. Well,
it's a
I'm
it
assuming
atrophies
it's not
the
positive.
muscles. It's not great. So the thing about that gets me here about exam time is that Draco seems to think that he's got a competitive advantage because he knows one of the proctors. But how does this, I guess, work in practice? If Griselda Marchbanks is his personal assessor, the way that Harry gets Tofty a couple of times, I can see how this works. But he's bragging that he knows Professor or Marchbanks, and the other kids are just like, "Come on, Draco!" Like,
right.
And Neville even privately discredits what Draco's saying.
It's very cool to see the different dynamics of how certain houses or students from certain houses are approaching these exams, because you have Hermione, who is muttering to herself as she is going through this whole process. You have Ernie Macmillan from Hufflepuff, who is comparing hours of studying, right? He's asking Ron, how many hours are you studying? And, I think he's trying to validate, right, what he's doing on his end.
Yeah. And then he's seeking some level of approval. I get this because I'm a Hufflepuff, so I get it. But nobody is at his level, so he comes away disappointed, and everyone else feels worse for having interacted with him.
Didn't we all have an Ernie in our classes who would do this kind of I don't know, academic
assertiveness,
Olympics?
About themselves, inward assert. It's a weird, but yeah, we have all had an Ernie.
It seems like Ernie would get along very well with Hermione, though, just based on what he's doing here in this moment.
I agree. I mean, he's saying he gets an hour in before breakfast. There's 8 hours overall.
It's almost like a workout comparison, right?
That's it.
I got an hour in before breakfast.
Yeah, I have such respect for people because it takes a schedule. You have to plan this out. In addition to the studying, you're also planning the structure around it. And Hermione has presumably not only done this for herself, but she's given timetables and things, at least in the past, for Harry and Ron to do as well. So I think they would get along.
But let's talk a little bit about what you brought up, Eric, in that Draco is making these offhanded remarks that it's not what you know, it's about who you know. And Neville does counter that a bit because he says that his grandmother is quite close with Griselda Marchbanks, and basically that there's no known relationship between her and the Malfoys. But my mind immediately went to corporate America, because I do think in many cases it is all about who you know, not necessarily about what you know. And I know, Laura, I see you nodding your head there.
Oh yeah, no, optics are super important.
I think this is important even outside of corporate America as well. It's just really, it's having those connections in all facets of life that can get you different places or get your foot in the door so you can get that interview or have that connection to lead you somewhere else.
But how is it relevant to what they're doing? How is it relevant to O.W.L.s? Because half of it, at least, is on paper, right? It's written. It's not who you know on a scantron.
I think Draco might be misplacing some trust here in his father knowing Marchbanks. I think he's assuming if he does poorly, maybe he can go to his dad, who can go to Marchbanks, something like that. But I agree, it's off, because if he does badly, he does badly on the test, unless they are going to fudge his scores. But that seems like a really bad thing for them to do.
Yeah, and the thing is, we know Draco is smart.
Yeah.
I think that we've been led to assume that he has, Hermione-ish levels of intelligence. He's no slouch, so it's not like he's going to fail. any of these exams. I honestly think he's just parroting some stuff he heard from his dad. That line about it's about who you know, that's something Lucius said. And he's just parroting it. He's doing this to brag and to name
And
drop.
to intimidate.
Yeah, exactly.
The other students that don't know Madam Marchbanks are just going to be like, oh, crap, I'm screwed, and throw their hands up. And maybe he's trying to psych the other kids out.
It's certainly coming from a position of entitlement.
To Laura's point that Draco is at Hermione level intelligence, certainly the fan fiction community thinks he is. But I do think it's very much him just repeating, I think, the kind of aristocratic
Mentality.
privileged life that he grew up with. Thinking that if you know somebody or if somebody knows your dad, that it's all going to fall into place.
Yeah. If he does bad, no big deal. My dad will be able to fix it. He always does.
Yeah, because it has before. Absolutely.
And I think that Ron had a very practical response to all of this, which was, well, if it is all about who you know, there's nothing we can do about it anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
What a sage Ron. What a wise Ron. I love this. We didn't get that in the movies as much.
No. But I think he's speaking from experience here, right? Because he did not have the experience that Draco had growing up, watching his family schmooze all of these people of high influence. So this is kind of baked in for Ron. I think he's already playing life on hard mode compared to someone like Draco.
That's a good point. Yep.
So it is time for us to sit our O.W.L.s. And Andrew, you want your results right away.
Yes, I'm stressed. I've been studying. I've been muttering under my breath. I haven't slept. And then we find out that the results will be shared with students come July after term ends. And that surprises me just because we're in a wizarding school. You would think that with so much magic at their disposal, they would be able to get near instant results back, thanks to some sort of, let's say, magical analysis.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
There's anti-cheating.
It would take so long.
Yeah, the magic that we already know about, things that affect quills. You got your spell check quill. You got your anti-cheating jinxes. You got all this other stuff that you can do to tests, but you still have to count by hand? Come on.
It's surprising the quill can't grade you in real time, actually.
Right.
With that
Well,
in mind.
that would be awful. Can you imagine? You write down the answer and immediately find out if you got it wrong?
Grading you in real time, but it's not telling you in real time.
As you're writing the answer,
it's like you go in for a scan, like a medical scan, and the person administering the scan can see your results in real time, and it's thinking to themselves, "Oh, this person."
But July is insane.
Andrew,
it is.
That feels like a very specific example. I don't know if we need to talk about that after we finish recording.
And did you get an ultrasound recently?
No.
They
but
turn the screen.
But well, my dog did actually, and I know the vet can see what's up in real time, and I don't want to wait around for the results. I guess that's what I was channeling, Laura.
We'll mail you.
I didn't realize it, but
yeah,
he's fine, by the way.
Okay, good.
Stacy, you have a real world example of this?
Interesting, following up the vet comment. I am a small animal veterinarian, and our boards are entirely multiple choice on a computer in a testing center on specific software. We take them, we leave. It was months before we got our scores back.
Oh my gosh.
In a dedicated center for that testing on dedicated computers.
And multiple choice.
Who's making money off of that time delay is the question you got to ask in today's corporate America. Who benefits from 3 months of not knowing your scores?
The bars. In the study companies who continue to get the students studying because they don't know if they have to retake it or not.
Oh. So were you stressed as hell waiting months for your results?
Very much so, but it also channeling Ron in the sense that it's done. I can't do anything else about it at this point.
Yeah.
So
you got to be zen. You got to find your zen. Yeah.
I was going to say that there's students who probably are just happy to be done with the exams and don't even think about the results until they get them in the mail. And then there's the students, probably like Hermione, who are sweating it out every single day, counting down the days probably until the results of the OWL exams arrive.
I wonder how many students change their grades when they get that envelope in the summer because they don't
like
want
you used to be able to, like, if you're mailed your report card, quick change an O to an S or an S to an O somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed though about these exams was just reflecting back a little bit on how much we've learned as readers in all these different subjects as we're going on this journey with Harry through all these different tests. And the first one that came to mind for me was charms, because Harry has a little smile on his face when it comes to, I think it's actually the written portion of the charms examination where he has to identify Wingardium Leviosa. And I thought that was such a great throwback to Sorcerer's Stone. And we actually get a couple of these types of throwbacks to other books where it came in really pivotal moments. And, this was one of them.
I have a kind of to push back on what I think those moments represent, because I was reading this chapter going, we know next to nothing about some of these subjects, like Transfiguration. Harry's got to make a teacup do cartwheels or something. We don't know the first part about how that magic actually works. Like, he's got to turn the teacup into something that cartwheels. So what is that? First of all, that you have to convert it to. Then what would the spell be? What would the root words for the spell be? We don't know anything. We spend 6 books going to classes and we know next to nothing about many of these subjects, to the point where the only thing we hear about these O.W.L.s is the things that Harry's coincidentally done, like Polyjuice Potion, that help him pass. So I was actually surprised by how little we know across all of these courses for how any of this magic actually works. We just know stuff. We just know the names of magical creatures, you know?
Because Harry, Ron, and Hermione are spending too much time yapping during classes instead of focusing on the lessons. And we as the reader get robbed of hearing some of the practical work that is involved in transfiguring.
Well, they're trying to save the school, in fairness, in pretty much every one of those books.
This isn't coming down on, I don't think this is coming down on anyone in particular, but I think on a chapter that is all about these massive tests, that's the summation of their knowledge, I feel like we as readers don't actually know a lot about any of these subjects.
I could
potions, maybe the most.
Totally wrong on this, but I think we might be surprised at how much we're actually told if we go back and look at all those classes in terms of what they were actually learning. It's just that the ones that stand out to us are the ones that had really important meaning to the story itself, like Wingardium Leviosa, like the Polyjuice Potion, like the Patronus Charm.
Look, I think that's probably a function of the writing too. You're not going to throw a lot of writing down on a page if it's not going to have a story-based purpose. But like, I don't know how charms work. I don't know how transfiguration works. Potions, we at least get ingredients that are rooted in history of the historical uses of herbs and stuff that we're familiar with for the most part, for the non-magical ingredients. We probably know the most about potions. Anything else? We don't even see ever we haven't been to another forensics class in divination since the first one. Like, we really, and Ron at least and Harry say, well, we were always going to fail the divination one. But still, like, yeah, there's actually a chapter like this just reminds me how little we actually ever really cracked into any of the subjects.
There is, to transfiguration, there is some theory that we get along the way when they talk about Gamp's Law several times. So, you can't conjure food, or I don't remember what some of the other ones were, but there were 5 or 6 things to Gamp's Law that are basically like the fundamental things within the field of transfiguration, which in theory could then at least explain and exclude some of the other things.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. And it's important to have those like basic fundamental principles laid out. So I'm glad we get Gamp's Law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Eric, but it's also, my mind goes to, you're not going to remember, that moment that was pivotal to the plot when Harry was getting his teacup to do cartwheels, so that he could gain access to the room of requirement, because only the teacup doing cartwheels in front of the door would allow the door to, I don't know where I'm going with this.
It sounds like a side mission in one of the Harry Potter video games, to be honest. I would actually be into that.
Let's talk about Defense Against the Dark Arts, because Harry gets thrown a bone here by Professor Tofty. A little bit of bonus action going on.
Is this favoritism?
So at the end of Harry's exam, Professor Tofty says, "Hey, kid, I hear you can do a pretty nice Patronus. Want to show me?" And then
why are you presenting this like Professor Tofty is running a drug operation?
Let me get to my question.
Listen.
Let me get to my point. So Harry pulls it off tremendously well. Well done, Harry. But then Tofty awards him a bonus point for doing this Patronus. Are the other students being offered bonus points? This seems very unfair, and we're playing favorites.
We're not with the other students. This speaks to what Draco was saying. It's who you know, because Tofty knows somebody else at the ministry who happened to tell him that Harry could do the Patronus. And Tofty, I think very innocently, is just like, "Hey, I heard you could do this for an extra point." And it's one of Harry's most badass moments, because he looks straight at Umbridge, uses her as the source for his happy memory that has to conjure the Patronus, and then wows everybody. But what I'm thinking, in this moment, you're in a room full of all these other kids that have been to Dumbledore's army, and all of them learned full Patronuses. So to see Harry get extra credit for being able to do something that they could do, but they don't get asked to do.
But he taught them.
Yeah, he taught them. So
that's what makes it special, is not only can he do that, he taught a bunch of his peers how to do something that's kind of advanced.
You don't think some of them could use the extra credit a little more?
I was going to say, it's the one class Harry doesn't need the extra credit in.
Maybe he can transfer that bonus point.
He walks out of there going, "That's what it feels like to get an outstanding."
Yeah, he's like, "Can I carry that bonus point over to potions, please?"
Yeah.
I do wonder how much one bonus point moves the needle, though, because this is Harry's best subject already. I think he would have gotten an O on this O.W.L. if he hadn't done the Patronus. So I'm just like, how much did this bonus point actually influence things? But I agree. It definitely is favoritism. It's not fair. And I feel like the only way to be fair about this would be if Tofty was just doing this with every student he examined, like finding a way to offer them a bonus point. And it just so happens.
That seems unlikely, right?
Yeah, he's not.
I think it's also meant to be a demonstration of power, though, on Harry's part, because he's conjuring it because he's looking right at Umbridge. And that has a lot of meaning. And it could also even be a little bit of foreshadowing because of what happens in Deathly Hallows when he confronts her at the ministry and has to use the Patronus charm to escape.
I was even thinking about just the next chapters when we find out that Umbridge was the one that sent the Dementors to Little Whinging. So the fact that Harry conjures a Patronus in front of her, and that's what helped him escape what she did
really
at the beginning of this book.
Nice.
Yeah, actually it's nice that this was brought up again in the writing.
And Eric, you mentioned potions and the Polyjuice potion, which of course is a nice throwback to Chamber of Secrets. But Harry actually, during this entire process, feels pretty good. And the reason why is because Snape is not in the room. And this is now at least the second time in this book that we've heard about Harry performing better when he hasn't had Snape breathing down his neck.
Yeah, and this also, reminds me of what happened last chapter with Ron not having his brothers at the Quidditch game, and he performed a lot better because he was less stressed.
Yeah, it's a great comparison there.
Yeah, hostile learning environments are a thing, and it's amazing how much pressure is off just when Snape's not around.
It is interesting to me, though, that Umbridge was allowed to be in Harry's DADA owl, but Snape is not present for the potions owl.
Maybe Umbridge thinks she's there to intimidate, and Snape just can't be screwed. Yeah. He's got other places to be.
I don't want to see that. Stuck there.
Yeah. Because do any of the other professors turn up?
Not that I remember reading offhand. Maybe the Discord can keep us honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even
It's
hear
fact check
about like,
us.
Sinistra.
And at least when it
being-
comes to Snape, Snape's probably still fuming about what happened a few chapters ago with the memories.
Probably.
Well, oh man, this is a fun connection. The memory that he's super ticked off that Harry saw took place during these very same exams.
Yeah.
So it might be even triggering for him to put himself in that environment.
He'll think he's
with
seeing
Harry.
James again. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
So a few other O.W.L.s just to mention, but nothing really major happens during these exams. Care of magical creatures, divination, herbology. Harry thinks he did relatively well, I would say, in both care of magical creatures and herbology. But somebody mentioned earlier that, I think it was you, Eric, Ron and Harry both know that they flunked divination and they're excited. That's another thing too. Like, do we remember from school when we took an exam and we're like, oh, thank God we're done with this subject. We don't have to take it again next year.
Yep. 100%.
That's basically divination for Ron and for Harry. So let's head up to the astronomy tower. It's an important place to be, right?
Yes, it's a very, very important lesson, Micah.
Dumbledore, where have you been?
Yeah.
That was Trelawney.
Well, I couldn't because
Oh.
it's the astronomy tower. You could get either person up there. I was
Right.
expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but that was lovely.
The astronomy OWL needs to be done at nighttime for obvious reasons. And the students who are up there taking their exams are witnessing quite the scene taking place down on the Hogwarts grounds because Umbridge, under the cover of night, decides that she is going to surprise attack Hagrid and do it with a number of ministry officials in tow.
I feel like whenever you see government officials, which is what Umbridge has with her, like Dawlish and a couple others are named, but like whenever you see people acting in this manner, it suggests that they don't have the law on their side. Or that it would be bad for optics if they were to do it in broad daylight. And Harry suspects that Umbridge doesn't want to cause a public school scene the way that she did with Trelawney's sacking. So that alone could be the reason for this, because she presumably is within her rights, especially as High Inquisitor now and headmistress, to fire Hagrid. But the darkness covering thing is very concerning from that standpoint.
Maybe this is a bit of a crackpot theory, but I was wondering if Umbridge purposely wanted to do this at this time because she knew Harry would be taking his astrology OWL at this time. So she gets to A, distract him while taking one of his tests, and then B, she makes him sort of witness the sacking of Hagrid.
Yeah. Oh, and it's so insidious too, because she is actively trying to undermine Harry at every turn. So she
right.
wants to put him in a position where he's the boy who cried wolf, right? And so nobody will believe him. And I think they're also assuming, on the basis of, Hagrid's giant background, they're assuming that most people aren't going to care that much that he's gone missing. And I think they're assuming that people aren't going to think that much about it if it's done quietly.
I think the insidious part is that they're sneaking up on Hagrid after a long day of work. Like he's probably kicked back. He's probably had a few.
And it's after midnight.
It's after midnight. They
It's
show
by
up.
design.
After midnight.
They show up and there's
Yeah.
6. We're going to let it all hang down.
Hagrid's gonna put a few down.
Mhm. Oh,
Oh, they
yeah.
already did.
All
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
you're talking about people. Okay.
No drinks.
Oh,
But
he
but
does
I
that
mean,
too.
people.
think about how much. Look, this isn't smart for them. They should have known this wasn't smart for them. They're cornering a man who's half giant. I know this whole thing is like race based and motivated to begin with, but they're cornering this guy. There's 6 of them. That's an escalation tactic right there. and they're surprising him, and they're going to take his job away. He's been doing this job for decades. They're just going to come in the middle of the night, take it away, not proper. That is garbage. It's of course going to cause a ruckus and a problem for all of them. It's also just friggin' cruel.
I think it's also a commentary on people who are power hungry, but very unqualified, extremely underqualified to be in the positions that they're in, kind of finding out while they're on the ground that they're in over their heads.
Yeah.
Because did not one of these people think, oh, well, if he's half giant, we can't just attack him the way that we would attack a human, right?
Right.
But Hagrid knew that the sack was coming, so that's really where the whole bringing ministry officials makes me think that possibly they're trying to get more information out of him, maybe about Dumbledore, maybe about the Order.
That's a good inclination, because I think that what would have escalated it was not the sack, because Hagrid was expecting it. What would have escalated it is clearly how racist or inappropriate something Umbridge says would be, right, during the actual confrontation. There would have been an additional, I think you're exactly right, there would have had to be an additional component to like what's going on. We just don't see it.
And as you point out, Eric, this is in June. Like, there's no reason really to fire him right now.
Why even fire him? Yeah, no,
Well,
that's
that
the
ties
only
into my
weird thing.
crackpot theory, I think.
Yeah, well, right. A separate way of making Harry feel more isolated. But he's got like two tests left. Like, then you're just done until the Hogwarts Express picks you up and takes you home. It's almost pointless to remove Hagrid at this juncture. It's a clever way to get McGonagall out of the picture for what has to come next. But beyond that,
I mean, really, that was kind of an accident.
Yeah.
They didn't expect
It's
her
like
to follow him out. And
but I'm saying,
cherry on
like,
top.
plot-wise,
Right.
she can't be here as a refuge for Harry. And so it's just because otherwise, again, Hagrid barely had a week's worth of lessons left to teach. Like, I understand the cruelty is the point, but it's not really adding up why Umbridge would waste the resources when he's going to be out of her hair, or she can just not invite him back over the summer break. She could have fired him.
I like what Aria and Beth said in the Discord. It feels more like an arrest. And for Hagrid, there's never been proof against him. Like, you think back of all the times the Ministry has come knocking at his door, they've never actually had evidence to arrest him, to send him to Azkaban.
Well, but they would be the same exact people that cite his previous suspicion of criminality and use it against him, right?
So I guess this is a good reason for him to resist arrest. But I do wonder if Hagrid should have gone peacefully, because I feel like this temper that he has and this resistance that he's putting on risks Umbridge trying to raise a point about Hagrid and more broadly half giants being a danger to the everyday witcher wizard or students at the school.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
if that's part of her
I
motivation.
feel like she's going to do that anyway. I don't think she needs an excuse.
Well, but they attack the dog. Fang gets stunned. Like, come on. Like,
no, for real. Some bodies would be hitting the floor. That's all I'm saying.
What do you think, Stacy?
I think we kind of covered most of what I was thinking, that it's one thing if you know it's coming and they just politely come and knock on your door and say, hey, we're actually doing this now. But to basically ambush somebody, and then, it is almost like an arrest. It's different to say, hey, you're fired, versus, hey, we're going to take your boss plus 6 police officers to come fire you. And then I think the violence that Hagrid shows really escalates, though, after McGonagall comes out and gets injured herself.
Yeah.
It is possible that they did want to do more than just fire him, that they tried questioning or suggested he would go to Azkaban or something. Because Aurors, who are like, wizard cops, are pretty much the ones that would take you to Azkaban. And if Umbridge suspects that Hagrid put the Nifflers in, there's probably more going on than what we see or ever learn about.
Feels like the Nifflers are small potatoes in this larger.
They are small potatoes. They're little
issue.
dumpling-sized creatures. It's really lovely.
Do you make Niffler dumplings?
Yeah. I mean, no. And you don't eat stoat either. 'Cause that's my Patronus.
And it is impressive to watch the physical nature of Hagrid in this chapter, because he is able to take out pretty much everybody, with the exception of one Auror who I think trips over his fallen mate, and Umbridge. So, the last episode that we did this chapter, I think you said was called Hagrid's Punch Out. So that's what is the reference here. So, but again,
it's also like punching out on the clock. Like your clock in and clock out, you punch out.
Okay.
It's his last day. It was so clever.
But it shows just like the sheer strength of Hagrid, because this is the third example now that we've gotten. He broke up the fight that Grawp was in. He rescued Firenze from the centaurs, and now, I mean, humans are nothing compared to centaurs and giants. Like, you just chuck them like potatoes. But as mentioned, McGonagall does get injured in this melee, and that is important for later on as events start to unfold. And the group is up late at night because of everything that has transpired with Hagrid, and they're talking till the early morning hours. And Harry has probably his most boring exam that day now, which is History of Magic. And you ever get into a warm classroom and your professor is just drawling on. In this case, you're taking an exam. There's probably lots of words to read, and your eyes start drooping, and before you know it, you're out cold. And that's exactly what happens to Harry. And we have the payoff for him not taking his occlumency lessons, which is mentioned at the beginning of this chapter again. For the last several weeks, this is the payoff now, because Harry has this vision of Voldemort, who has Sirius in the Department of Mysteries. He's in pretty bad shape, and he's being tortured by the Cruciatus Curse. At least that's what we're led to believe.
I wonder why Harry doesn't have a larger scrutiny. I think what causes Harry to get in action right away, and this is based on the information Voldemort has been able to obtain from Creature and Sirius about the connection that Sirius and Harry share, is the torturing Sirius part. This is what makes Harry have to act fast and do less thinking. And it's a shame, because I think Harry would be less inclined somehow, or less urgent about saving Sirius from being tortured, if on some level Sirius had not in fact been being tortured all year by not being let out of his own house. Like I think there's this extra component of, he wants to save Sirius being tortured by Voldemort, but Harry particularly feels Sirius's pain throughout the year. And I think there's some element of that buildup where now he's just going to be killed. Like, now he's going to be tortured and killed by Voldemort. Oh, hell no. Like, I think that the whole year Sirius has had all of this suffering, and then that kind of imbues Harry with a little bit more, even more urgency than he would normally have. Does that make any sense?
Yes. Plus, Harry was right about Arthur. That really happened.
Yeah.
So he has no reason to doubt this vision as well. And as we not so jokingly like to say on the show, Harry has a saving people thing. This is what he does. He got
I can't
this
wait
vision.
to talk about that next week when it comes up. But or not next week. We'll talk.
And all of his safety nets have been removed now, right? McGonagall is in the infirmary. Hagrid is gone. Dumbledore is gone. And we talked about this in prior episodes, but the last thing he wants to do now is potentially lose Sirius on top of it all. And he's got nobody to go to that he can trust. Even Snape is pissed off at him. So what's frustrating about all of this is you could have had somebody like Dumbledore just say, Harry, if you start to have visions, let me know and send me an owl. It will find me. Send me Hedwig. She will find me, and none of that happens. But
again, I think his excuse is always that he's afraid Voldemort will find out, because if he's able to break into Harry's mind and see.
Oh, he's 150 years old. He needs to put on his big boy pants already, okay? He's faced worse than Voldemort, presumably.
Well, the thing is, he directly faces Voldemort in a couple chapters from now. So, like,
No.
it couldn't be worse facing Harry, as Voldemort or whatever.
I thought it would be fun to wrap up just asking, what would Harry's post-exam life look like if he didn't have a Dark Lord inside of his head? Because this is his last test. We all remember what it was like to get to that last exam, and then school's out for summer, right? Like, you'd think he would be able to enjoy himself, like down by the lake.
Summertime and the living's easy.
Yeah.
But not in his case, unfortunately.
No.
Well,
He
and there
never
would
gets a
usually, if you were on like a campus, there was usually like last day of exams parties,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That everyone would go to.
Mhm.
Hogsmeade trip.
Yeah, we had something called like field day, and it was like athletics. We split into 2 teams, but I think that all happened at like the end of the year. It was just fun relays and exercise, like an outdoor day.
That was because they had to maintain a certain number of school days for the calendar year to secure all their funding, and they didn't have enough content to actually be teaching you anything for all those days, which is why you have all of those kind of like BS days towards the end of the school year. But
TV cart days. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a funding issue? We lucked out.
A couple of odds and ends. There was a interesting quote when Ron was going through his... I went left and I went right. And
Who's right? Who's left?
So did you see the look on Chang's face when Ginny got the snitch right out from under her nose? And I wondered if this was a reference to Harry, possibly.
Like in the way that it would have been Harry having to face off with her if he wasn't banned?
No,
Well,
like Ginny stole Harry right from under Cho's nose.
yeah.
Oh.
Maybe.
Did she? Yeah, maybe.
I was going to say, I think there was a Slytherin match where he basically took the snitch right out from under Draco's nose.
That was my first inclination.
It's got to be something that happens fairly often as seekers, because you're both probably pretty good at seeing the snitch. So then you both dive for it, and you are always in close.
Once one person is pursuing it, the other person just catches up, as
like,
we've seen in the
catch
books.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was more of a romantic hint.
Well, then
I think it is.
Harry's kind of a jerk too. He's like, "Would she cry?" And
yeah, she did.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, like.
But I love how we're already back on like last name terms about Cho. Like, I mean, she and Harry just broke up, whatever the breakup equivalent is for this relationship. But like, I mean, y'all were just making out in the room of requirement a few months ago.
But that was also her friend who busted Dumbledore's arm.
And
so
remember,
we're back to acting like we don't
remember
even
Laura,
know her.
she's a Tornadoes supporter, and she's like a bandwagoner, and only started liking them when they were popular. And so it's okay to just dehumanize people like that.
Of course.
One more odd and ends. Y'all know I like looking out for the numbers 7 and 12 across the series because they come out a lot. This might be a bit of a stretch, but while Harry and company are taking their O.W.L. on top of the astronomy tower, they're watching Hagrid fight the Ministry, and Professor Tofty reminds the students that there's only 16 minutes left to take their exam. Now, yes,
16.
that's not the number 7 or 12, but 1 plus 6 equals 7.
Oh,
this might be a bit of Taylor Swifty level theorizing here, but this is another 7 reference, in my humble opinion. Because why 16 minutes? Why? Because 1 plus 6 equals 7. Thank you.
There you go. All right, for our MVP this week, we asked, what O.W.L. would we most like to sit after going through this whole experience with Harry?
Transfiguration seems fun. I like the idea of turning one object into another object. So I think that one. And like Eric was alluding to earlier, we could learn a lot more about it. So I would like to get into the nitty gritty of Transfiguration.
Presumably we learn a lot more about it before the O.W.L. takes place and then be reasonably competent I think honestly potions would be a lot of fun to sit, because I think it would be a subject where I could memorize what types of herbs and things and how they work. And so I feel like I would have a pretty good grasp of it. It feels like something you can touch and work with.
I would go with care of magical creatures. I just love animals anyway. And I do tend to agree with Hagrid that there are a lot of animals out there that are misunderstood. So I think that I would have the right attitude towards that. But also just reading about that exam, it's literally just Harry showing that he knows how to take care of the animals. So I'm like,
if you don't kill these living
easy
things
and fun.
Well, like in the herbology one, like never give me plants because they'll die. They'll be dead by the end of class.
I went with Defense Against the Dark Arts. It just seems like a very cool subject, and I'd try and cast a Patronus for an extra point.
Would you do it in front of Umbridge, or would you be nervous?
Oh no, I'd same as Harry. I'd look straight at her, conjure a
nice
happy memory, and I'd have my Patronus attack her though. I think mine's a Sparrowhawk.
Ooh, that's cool.
Way more aggressive than a shrew.
Yeah.
I would say charms because it seems like it's the most day-to-day applicable.
Good point. Classic magic.
Mm-hmm.
And we also asked our patrons over on the Links line this week, after Harry overhears Professor Marchbank tell Professor Umbridge that Dumbledore did things with a wand I'd never seen before, we wanted to know, what kind of things do you imagine Dumbledore doing to impress the examiners?
Oh, brother.
This was too easy.
Yeah, Micah, get your mind out of the gutter. So, Carly...
Do you see how that question is phrased? What kinds of things do you imagine Dumbledore doing to impress the examiners?
You see Micah pointing at the question right now. He pointed at his screen. Never seen somebody do that before.
PC. I could have gone at it. I could have said inappropriate answers only, although we did get some.
Well, our listeners know you, and you know our listeners. So yes, we did get some inappropriate ones. But here's a wholesome one from Carly. She said, conducted an imaginary choir and orchestra, and all of a sudden the Great Hall was filled with sounds.
You see the imagination that our patrons have.
All right, now parents, turn off the show for the rest of these.
I think I got a dirty one, you guys. It says from Kayla, he's able to control the trajectory and force of which stuff comes out of his wand with perfect precision that many men should be jealous of. I'm just confused. Honestly, I feel like I'll never be young again and innocent after reading that.
Well, along those lines, James says, I'm sure Albus showed Gellert many things he could do with his wand. Wink, wink.
Our next one is from Kim, who says, since he likes knitting sock patterns, he used his wand to knit 3 pairs of socks simultaneously while singing Rule Britannia, which, I just searched for this in Google because I don't know what it is. It is a British patriotic song with lyrics from a poem by James Thomson. Maybe a relative?
Isn't it
Yeah, no, I think that is right. Huh? Yeah.
Now knit those socks, Eric, at the same time.
Zachary said he was able to non-verbally use the Imperious Curse on all of the examiners to get top marks. The wand was just a prop. However, this wasn't enough, and his ego took over so much that he ended up placing the curse on everyone he came in contact with during his life. Dumby gets what Dumby wants.
Rachel said, produced a second wand, used them as chopsticks to eat sushi, and performed wandless magic to scrub the windows in the Great Hall. Wow, very specific, Rachel.
Sarah says, baton twirling, obviously. Yeah, the wands are probably pretty well balanced.
Robert said he rewrote the timeline so he would teach Defense Against the Dark Arts and McGonagall would be born decades before she should have been. A reference to the Fantastic Beasts series.
Very nice. And rounding us out here, Justin said, turn around like he's Michael Scott, stick it out from under his robes, then turn back around and shoot out white sparks. This is all inspired by the emoji you used, or the emoji you added to the end of the question. What emoji?
Andrew, what emoji did you add at the end of the question?
I added the smirk. emoji. So I guess
Oh.
I am to blame for some
Put
of the
that finger back in your direction. But that
the
was
links
fun.
line is a great way to have your voice heard on the show, whether or not you are listening live. We ask a new question every week, and we invite you to become a member of our community by visiting patreon.com/MuggleCast and pledging for as little as $5 a month. And if you have any feedback about today's discussion, you can contact us by emailing or sending a voice memo that you record on your phone to MuggleCast@gmail.com. Next week, we will be off because it is the 4th of July holiday here in the United States, but we will be releasing a bonus MuggleCast from our archives for your listening pleasure, and we'll be back the following week with the next chapter of Order of the Phoenix. If you enjoy the bonus material that you hear next week, please do visit patreon.com/MuggleCast to get hundreds more installments. Hundreds! We've been at this for years with hundreds more to come. And while you're barbecuing over the grill this 4th of July and you're looking for more podcasting content from the four of us, check out What the Hype and Millennial for more pop culture and real world talk. Now it's time for Quizitch.
This week's Quizitch question. What wrestler who stood at a giant height of 7 feet 4 inches was also an actor starring in a film that featured not a forbidden forest, but a fire swamp? The correct answer, of course, was Andre the Giant from The Princess Bride. And 81% of people with the correct answer did not look this up. It was an easy one. But I was very happy to see that. And these names, you guys, very exciting. Correct answers were submitted by Acromantula's Forbidden Forest version of rodents of unusual size, Amelia the Giant, Draco's Etsy badge shop, Grawp's uprooted trees. Hello, my name is Molly Weasley. You tried to kill my Ginny. Prepare to die, bitch. Hermione Granger, Homeschool Hufflepuff. I don't know wrestling. Oh, hey, I think I know this one. Inconceivable. O.W.L.s be back. Only here for Micah's daddy jokes. Practically magic. Raven Bell is ready for the O.W.L.s. Snape snitched. The dread pirate Ravenclaw. The Princess Bort. Whizzle Snape. You are the Brute Squad. And Tofu Tom. Love the Princess Bort.
You know,
Here is
daddy jokes, I think, are different than dad jokes, aren't they? Like, that's a different
Yeah.
category.
That's a
of
whole
joke.
thing. You gotta branch off into no, you don't. No.
See, Micah,
It's
the daddy jokes are for the OnlyFans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For the bonus MuggleCast.
Anyway, here is next week's Quizitch question. Harry struggles to name all of the moons of Jupiter for his astronomy OWL. Which of the following is not one of Jupiter's moons? There are 97. Io, Metis, Europa, Ganymede, Calypso, Themisto, Pandia, and S/2003J2. So it's all written out on the Quizitch form, which you may find helpful. Go over to the MuggleCast website, MuggleCast.com, and click on Quizitch from the main nav, or go to MuggleCast.com/Quizitch to participate in this 2-week-long Quizitch question. Time to study up on Jupiter's moons, y'all.
Stacy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We appreciate your support and all your contributions to today's episode.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Good luck with growing your wands collection. Keep us posted. We should see if we should have a contest. Who has the most wands amongst our audience? I'm sure you would be up there, Stacy. Thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review in your favorite podcast app, and please do tell a friend about the show. Have a great 4th of July holiday too, if you are in America. I'm Andrew.
I'm Eric.
I'm Micah.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Stacy.
Bye everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.